casting was also interesting. You know, early on, and you know, this again says a lot about who Marty is. I mean, he was incredibly gracious and inclusive of me in this whole process. I mean, he could have very easily just said, "I'll take care of this, and then when I'm done, you can take over the series." But he was so, you know, incredibly gracious about, you know, solicitous of my opinion about things, and really, you know, really involved. And early on, you know, we talked about Nucky first and foremost. All right, this is the lead guy, and we talked about the idea of who the real Nucky was, and then realized nobody knows who the real Nucky is. I had gone down to Atlantic City and randomly stopped people who said they lived there for years, and I said, "You ever hear of Nucky Thompson?" Nucky Johnson, never heard of him. Now, if you go to Atlantic City, everybody knew. Oh, my uncle knew him. Then nobody really knew who he was. The real Nucky actually sort of physically resembled Jim Gandolfini. So if you wanted to cast somebody to play him, you'd go to Jim, which I knew that was going to happen. He just came up off The Sopranos, and you know, we wouldn't want to do that. And I'm sure Jim wouldn't have been interested in doing a series like that anyway. So Marty said, "Look, you know what? Nobody knows who the real guy is, what he looked like. Let's just cast an actor we want to work with, who we think the best actor is." And I'm pretty sure it was me who said, "What about Steve Buscemi?" And Marty said, "I love Steve Buscemi. I worked with him on a small film I did years ago. I'd love to work with him again." I said, "Well, I just worked with him on Sopranos. He's great. I mean, just absolutely, you know, wonderful across the board. This is a guy I wouldn't mind spending the next 8 years with on a series." And that's, you know, unlike a movie where you go, I only need to get through the next 3 months with this person. You get, you know, on a successful series, you could be living with a cast for a really long time. And Steve's one of those guys I could work with for the rest of my life. Just a pleasure to work with, just in every possible way. So Marty responded immediately. And this is, you know, again, to their credit, HBO went, "Wow, that's really interesting." You know, as opposed to, "Hey, well, what about, you know, some big, you know, hunky TV actor kind of thing?" They just don't think like that. They just see it the way you do, outside the box, and they say, "Wow, that's really interesting casting." So from there, it was really, you know, the luxury of having the greatest actor magnet in the world helming your show. The casting process, you know, and Ellen Lewis was phenomenal. You know, she's a phenomenal casting director. I don't want to take anything away from her, but, you know, having Marty there and the two of them, you know, who had done a bunch of movies together, getting actors interested was not that hard, I think. You know, it was a question of availability and do they want to do series, but do you want to be on an HBO show, you know, directed by Martin Scorsese? You know, he would be like beating people off with sticks in some cases. So Kelly MacDonald, you know, who I knew and adored, you know, from her work, she came on. That was great. Michael Shannon had become available. I knew who he was. Arnold Rothstein was a tough part to cast, and Michael Stuhlbarg walked through the door, and I went, "Oh my God, this is the guy." Casting a young Al Capone, I had seen This Is England, and Marty brought up Stephen Graham, and I went, "You're the guy who played the skinhead?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Done. I'm there. Great. He's on board." Young Lucky Luciano, that was interesting for me because the actor who auditioned, Vincent Piazza, had played one of AJ's friends, his rich friend Hernan. And they said, "Vincent Piazza is going to audition for Lucky Luciano." And I said, "Hernan?" And they said, "Yeah." I was like, "All right, I don't know." And he came in and he was a different person. I said, "Holy shit, he's Lucky Luciano." He was done, you know. And it's like all these things. Then it was Jimmy Darmody, and that was like a challenge. And I had known Michael Pitt. I had seen Funny Games, and there was a question of whether or not he wanted to do TV or not. And then he and I had lunch in Los Angeles, and I just took him through what I saw for the character and who the character was and the series and everything else, and then he was on board, and he came in and read with Marty and I, and actually it was just the three of us, and I actually had to read with Michael. I'm on his audition tape reading with him, which is like, he's such a great actor. I'm so self-conscious because I can't act, and you know, just trying to like hope that I was getting him there, but we did. Paul Sparks came on for Mickey Doyle. Again, it just started to. This cast started to assemble, and I started putting the headshots up on the wall, and I started to get intimidated. I was just looking at these actors like, "Oh my God, look at this cast, like one better than the other." It's like Broadway actors, Steve, Kelly, Shannon, Stuhlbarg, Shea Wiggum, just one after another of just like, I said, I gotta write, this has to be good. We really have to write a good show here because look at these people. And that was it. And then, you know, shot the pilot, got it, and HBO saw it and said, "Okay, go, do the series." And then we just jumped in.
One person we didn't mention was Gretchen Mol.
I'm so sorry to have forgotten to mention her. Again, critical part to cast, very difficult, very challenging part. She had to be a young woman who is believable as Michael Pitt's mother. And this is how courageous Gretchen is to say, she's a young woman, beautiful young woman, who you'd say to most actors of that age, do you want to play Michael Pitt's mom? They'd be, are you kidding? It's career suicide. She said, wow, that's really great. And I said, yeah, of course, it will be revealed that you were like 13 when you had him, but this is, initially people have to think you're his girlfriend. And that was the mislead when you first see these two characters together. She's practically naked and runs and jumps into his arms, and then he calls her mom, and you're supposed to go like, that's like the needle off the record thing, like, what, mom? And then of course that story goes where it goes. But Gretchen really embraced it, and just I don't think she is confident enough in her own abilities as an actress and her own femininity that you don't look at Gretchen Mol and say, oh wow, how could she be playing this guy's mother? I mean, she just inhabits that role and is just terrific in it.